I know what you're like with states. You know where every state is. If you didn't know that at the time, then...
As like the only thing I think I knew about is that the Amish people are from there.
Oh,
That's the only thing that I knew about.
It was just an absolute takeover of the whole sort of summer camp.
Camp in general, really. I think it gives you that space where if you do want to challenge yourself and get out of your comfort zone and try something new, you've got the opportunity to do that.
Colour, paint everywhere. What was July the 4th like in yours? I was like, I'll eat anything. As long as it's not olives, I'll eat them. And they went, the only thing we've got is olives. We're out of the bread and everything.
Have to deal with it.
So I had to eat them. And I think because I was that hungry and it saved me.
It saved you. Yeah.
I was literally like, I'm eating them. And I came to like them. And like now, love them. I get them in a Tesco meal deal.
That's a bit of a rogue one, but fair enough.
That or a Scotch egg.
I feel like it's like that with anything though. Like if you train yourself enough to like it that much, because the only thing that's mushrooms are just a no-go. Like,
you say
there's just no way in hell mushrooms are going to be appealing to me at any point in my life. They deserve to stay in the ground.
I can't get my head around that one either. But again, I think growing up, I didn't like mushrooms.
You didn't like mushrooms?
No, but I think I got to a stage where I was like, you're an adult now. Stop hating on mushrooms.
We just talk about vegetables for the rest of the podcast.
I was going to say that or really bad Tesco meal deals.
What is your go-to? This is just turning into the happy hour podcast now.
I was going to say, what a podcast that is. Go-to meal deal, chicken and chorizo.
Nice.
One of those smoothies. What are they called?
The innocent ones? Or
no, the other ones. I can't... naked smoothies, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And
snack, though. The snack is kind of the make or break, I think, with it.
I'm saying olives again. I like olives.
Fair.
They're good.
Each to their own, man.
It's a bit of a shout, but anyway, gone off on a bit of a direction, haven't we? Yeah, but first off, nice one, mate, for jumping on and having a chat. I know that.
Thanks for having me on, man.
I think people are probably bored of me already, but being the guest, I think maybe if you want to introduce yourself. What camp you went to and kind of what you're doing with camp leaders as well.
Yeah. So my name's Chris. I'm originally from the Midlands. I went to Camp Starlight for 4 summers between 2015 and 2018. I was a lifeguard and a swimming instructor. I'd kind of done a little bit of that before I'd gone to uni, so I had like maybe a year or two kind of experience teaching swimming.
Nice.
Before I went to camp. And it was when I was first doing my application, I put everything that I'd ever done in my entire life on there. So, but luckily they hired me as a lifeguard, which was an amazing experience. And then, with camp leaders, I started working here for the past year. I think I've been here about a year now. And just sort of talking to people about kind of my experience with camp, what I loved about it, and hopefully getting people on board and excited about it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sorry, I know you just mentioned how many years?
4 summers, yeah.
4. Crazy.
I was only supposed to do 1 as well.
Really?
So like, it's kind of a funny story about me going to camp because I was in my final year of uni. I'd kind of gone home for Easter and I was sort of having a conversation with my mum about what I was going to do after uni because I didn't have a clue what I was going to do.
Same as us all, yeah.
And I think I've got an older sister and one of her friends had done it for a few years before, and I think someone from mum's work had done it as well.
Okay.
So mum kind of suggested it, and I was like, oh, I'll look into it. And I went on the website, and I was like, that kind of looks cool. There's something to do like after I've finished like full-time education. It's kind of like a nice sort of bookend to it, I guess. Got hired like 2 weeks before I flew out. I think it was super late in the season. And then... I think my original plan was I was going to get like a proper job, if you know what I mean. Afterwards, but I ended up loving it so much. I was like, I'm going to get the first job I can when I get home, save up for it, and do it again. And then that just kind of spiraled and ended up doing it for 4 summers.
Did you say Camp Starlight?
Camp Starlight.
Where's that?
Pennsylvania.
Oh,
so
amazing.
18461. Shout out.
Love it. And I was going to say, like, this is something that we brought up when I spoke to Ryan on a couple of episodes ago, but it was like, was Pennsylvania one of those places that you knew much about? Because for me, I went to Wisconsin, and when I went through this application process, or even before that, I knew very little about Wisconsin unless it kind of come up in like election talk and everything. Did you know anything about Pennsylvania, or just kind of jump head first into it?
Pretty much head first. I knew of the name. I didn't know where it was. The only thing I think I knew about is that the Amish people are from there. That's the only thing that I knew about it.
And by the way, I know what you're like with states. You know where every state is. If you didn't know that at the time,
as like if you've watched the quiz video on the YouTube channel, you'll know I'm a nerd for that sort of stuff as well.
You know your stuff when it comes to states and everything. Well, one thing I was going to say as well, because I think the beauty of going to camp, especially in different places and stuff, is every state, every camp kind of has their own traditions. One thing which is absolutely constant across every single summer camp is the events.
Yeah.
Now, they may vary a bit between it, but summer camp events are huge, aren't they? It's just something where everyone gets involved. There's a mad atmosphere that goes across the entire sort of camp as you're there. Can you remember off the top of your heads what some of these events were like, or any in particular?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we could be talking for hours about the events
definitely.
at camp. And the thing with the events at camp was, for me, that's what kept the magic of the place going. That's the reason why I kept going back so many times, because I think it's kind of been discussed on the podcast previously, but you know, I never considered camp a job at any point. I probably would have done it for free at any point. I don't think my camp want me to say that, but I would have done it for free at any point. You know, like with any job, I think you do run into days where we always refer to it as you would hit a bit of a brick wall where, you know, maybe it's been a really hot day, you're dehydrated, you haven't particularly liked lunch, so you haven't eaten a lot of food today, the kids are getting on your nerves. There will be a day where you just, you know, prefer to be in bed. No olives, no meal deals, what's going on? There will be days where you just prefer to be in bed, watching Netflix with a hot chockey and just having a nice time.
And everyone will have that.
Definitely, yeah. And it's something to be like not ashamed of, because it does happen like with any job. But the thing that kind of always would get me out of the rut, or the kind of, you know, hitting the brick wall or whatever that is, would be if we had something cool happening. And that was a good thing about going back as a returner as well, because you knew what kind of events were coming up, so you could get excited about it. That would always kind of keep me out of it. And, you know, as I said, we can talk for hours about different kinds of events at camp. I
think that's a cool thing you mentioned there as well, that knowing about what's coming, because I think it's something to get excited for. Because in first year, and I hadn't done my research, I hadn't listened to podcasts or videos or anything like that. So like in my first year, I had no idea what was coming, even some of the bigger events. And one which kind of blew my mind initially when I was kind of going through it was Camp Olympics. I didn't even know this was a thing, and it was just an absolute takeover of the whole sort of summer camp. I know every camp does things a bit different. Did your camp have Camp Olympics as well?
Yeah, and it was easily probably the biggest part about the whole summer.
Really?
And it's the thing I loved about Olympics as well is because you didn't know when it was going to break. Nobody knew about it, so it was always a bit of a surprise. And you have like that week where everyone knows that it's going to happen at some point that week, but you don't know which day it's going to be.
The prep's going in by the staff.
Literally. And there's so much kind of research that's done into it by the kids as well, saying like, oh, we went to lacrosse period 5 yesterday, we're going period 4 today. That means Olympics is happening.
They are so on the ball,
and it's so strange as well, because I think when you talk to people from home or people who haven't been to camp before and you try and describe Olympics, it's almost pointless, because you just can't emphasize like how much passion is involved in it, and then how much passion you ended up getting involved with as well. So I, like, similar to you, I'd never really heard about it before. I didn't really know about anything about camp before I went, because I got hired quite late in the season. So I didn't really, as you say, do any research behind it at all.
Of course,
so going into it, I was kind of, as the summer goes on, you're kind of told about it by the returners and stuff, but you don't really know what's going to go on. And then it breaks, and then everyone's going absolutely mental.
Wild.
And you end up getting involved in it as well. And it's just, and then when it's over, you're like, what's just happened for the past week or so? Like, that's been insane.
It is on that type of energy level, isn't it? And give us a bit of a breakdown of it. So when people hear Camp Olympics, they kind of, you think sports, you're thinking the different sort of track and field events. Is that what it is on the surface? What's the format of it? How do people find out? Just what is it about?
Yeah, it's basically, and it's different for different camps, but the way that it worked in mine was we basically had, the whole camp would be split into 2 teams. So there'd be a blue team and a white team. All the counsellors would be given a team as well, and that would be your team for Olympics essentially. And then it does sound like it would be kind of like sporty, athletics, track and field, but that's not the case at all. There's a load of different events which will give you points towards your team's total tally, and then whoever has the most points at the end of Olympics wins.
They win.
And there's not really much of a reward for winning other than the bragging rights, I guess.
Which amongst kids is massive itself, isn't it?
Even amongst counsellors, like you'll be talking to returners and you'll be like, so what's your Olympic record? And you'll be like, oh, it's 2-0. And I'm sitting there saying like, oh, mine's 0-3. I haven't actually managed to win it yet, which I did in my final summer, which I was very happy with.
Is that why you called it after that? You went, it's not getting any better.
Yeah, I'm done now. I've ended on a high. That's the only reason why I kept going back, is just to finally win it. But it was like some of the events where you'd have your obvious kind of like sporting ones, so there'd be like football tournaments, basketball, things like that. But then you'd have huge events like Sing, for example, which is where you have two counsellors on each team who are the designated Sing leaders. They basically write a bunch of songs. They teach the kids the song. They build, I think it's maybe about 5 songs in total. They build like a big set that the kids are going to perform in front of. And it's a whole massive event, and it's because I was a singing leader in my third summer, and it's the most amount of work I've ever done in my entire life. You're up until like 3 a.m. writing these songs, and then you got a whole day of teaching the kids these songs, and it's mental. But it's basically, I think it's the event that has the most points, so you really want to win it. And it's kind of that thing, if you win sing, more than likely you're going to win Olympics. So everybody gets super involved with it, and it's super passionate. And that involves like other, some kids won't be into the sporting events as others. Some will have like more creative outputs into arts and crafts or music and things like that. So it gives those kids an opportunity to express themselves in a bit of a different way, other than the competition of like sport and things like that.
And I think that was one thing which I wanted to kind of mention about Camp Olympics. What was so great about it is the fact it does get everyone involved, doesn't it? It isn't just as you think, I think sports, I think that, there's something for everyone. And half the beauty of camp, what everyone mentions, as well as the fact that everyone can be themselves there, can't they?
Yeah,
but
definitely.
You've got a chance to get involved in Olympics, and it's not just that sporting.
And that's the great thing about camp in general, really. I think it gives you that space where if you do want to challenge yourself and get out of your comfort zone and try something new, you've got the opportunity to do that. And even if that's not your cup of tea and you just want to kind of go along the summer as normal, you can do that as well. You can do anything you want as long as you're yourself and you're trying to make an impact on a kid's life and your own life as well. Then you're good at that point.
And I think that's, like you've mentioned there, the great thing is that you can be yourself, and you can almost have a bit of fun with it as well. And I think that's definitely, no matter what your background or where you're from. And I think one thing which really showed that to me was July the 4th.
Yeah.
So obviously, like, we're English type of thing. I see July the 4th, Independence Day, see all of this on the films and the videos and everything. And I was like, wow, that's seeing such like a pride in country and stuff, that I think I was like, it's incredible. I kind of love to be there to see what it's like. When you're at camp, that is like times 100, isn't it?
Yeah.
Colour, paint everywhere. What was July the 4th like in yours?
It's a culture shock, I found, because I think with, not to be too cynical about the UK, but I think we can be quite a bit of a pessimistic country. We don't really celebrate, especially in England, we don't celebrate St. George's Day really. And I think if we're not moaning about politics, we're moaning about the weather or Harry Kane, we're moaning about something.
Yeah.
So then go and experience a day where, everyone's super optimistic and very passionate and very patriotic about where they're from. It's an incredible feeling, really. And the great thing about July 4th is just because it's essentially a day where we just do the most random stuff ever. So I remember one year, and we did it was completely different every year, but the kind of finalization to it would be, we'd have a massive fireworks display over the lake at camp. It would go on for like 45 minutes as well, and it was the best fireworks display I've probably ever seen in my life, to be honest. We had kind of like weird and wacky like events during those days, because I remember one year we had I think they were given, the bunks were given a competition where you basically got given a pumpkin and you had to dress up the pumpkin in the best way that you could. So I remember there was one where they got dressed up as Harry Potter, and they had these little glasses that they put on this pumpkin, and then one of the councillors like stole it, and we just started running around with these glasses, and it was the funniest thing ever. But then we had one where it was what's it called, where you like fall into the water and you a belly flop. We had a belly flop competition where you didn't have to do it if you didn't want to, obviously, but if you were up for it, each one of the councillors, I think we normally picked one from a division who was obviously up for it, would basically just do the best belly flop that they could.
Brilliant.
Brutal.
I can imagine.
The sound coming off that lake sometimes was horrendous, but
I've heard a few bad ones working on the water, and they're by accident as well, so the competitions must have been funny.
Yeah, definitely. But July 4th was really cool.
I remember in ours we had like slip and slides and everything. I had the face paint on by like 9 a.m. The stars and stripes everywhere. And it was just a cool celebration. Obviously, we're international staff going over, so it's a window into, like you said, a new culture. But the fact that a lot of people that will be working there will be American as well, so there's a real kind of pride in it, isn't there? And I think that's the beauty of camp. Some of those little stories that you've got which come up from it, they're like, you didn't go to camp to dress a pumpkin up as Harry Potter. If you put it on your application, fair enough. But
it wasn't it was my second choice.
It was your second choice, exactly. So I think those stories that you get from it, they do just come up a lot of the time because of these events, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things where when you do meet with people who've just been to camp, not even the same camp as you, can relate to those kind of events because it's kind of just a weird and wacky part of camp. But then my favorite thing is, when we do meet up with people from my camp, we have a bit of reunion and we talk about those times where we nick the glasses from the pumpkin, which just sounds dumb to everybody else. It's just really funny, and it brings back that really just like nice feeling of like, we experienced something really cool together. And that's kind of the catalyst for it, I guess.
We had what was it like? there was ourselves down at the water ski team, and then there was other people down at the Cove, a team down there where you had all the inflatables and stuff like that. And I think it was the Cove, or us on the water ski. I can't remember which way around it is. We had like an owl, like not a real owl,
Oh,
but
right.
like
I was going to say.
like a statue of an owl. And I remember at one point we would keep trying to steal it and sneak into each other's camp and then get it and move it back. And then people were saying, right, the owl's been taken, and it was a big thing. And I just look back sort of chuckling as well, because you have these little things which are not necessarily organized things, but when you come back round to think about them, you're there going, oh, that was a good laugh, that, isn't it? And there's loads of those types of moments.
Definitely, yeah. Even just like random stories at camp. Like we had like a ghost story at camp, which even just like telling that to kind of new counselors and stuff, it's just something unique about your camp as well.
That type
it
of
just
tradition.
it just boosts that, as you say, the kind of traditions behind it, which make camp for what it is, I think.
And one which we spoke about previously, and I think you mentioned that you didn't have it at your one, was like the color type of battles and everything. So that was another crazy event, which I know quite a few camps have, where there's literally there's paint flying everywhere. There's like the type of dust, colorful dust and everything. Everyone's absolutely caked in their different colors, and there's different things that are going on like that. There are just so many different events, and I was kind of very in the middle thinking with this podcast, I was like, I wonder if it's best to let people kind of not have any idea and just kind of find them out as they go.
Yeah, definitely.
But at the same point, kind of knowing about some of these, because these are the types of events, aren't they, where you won't do anything like this unless you go to camp.
Yeah. No, I don't think you'll appreciate how just sick it is unless you go to camp as
literally.
well. It's like, it's good and well just like sort of telling the stories, but I don't think you can really kind of dive into it and appreciate until you've done it yourself, pretty much.
Yeah, for sure. So going on to those ones that you've experienced and stuff, take away the big events, take away the July the 4th, take away the Olympics, the color battles, stuff like that. There's loads of other like little things that go on, isn't there, kind of through the year, which might just be very individual to your camp.
Yeah.
Can you recall any like off the top of your head?
Yeah, loads, to be honest, mate. I remember we had one called, I think it was the Starlight Wrestling Federation. I want to say it was SWF. And it was similar to the kind of the belly flop one, I suppose. It was like, if you want to get involved in it as a counselor, you can learn some wrestling moves and you get to like do a bit of a show. And there'll be kind of a story behind it. And it's similar to kind of Olympics, where there'll be a bit of a rumors like who's going to win, like SWF this year, who's going to be like the winner of it, and who's going to get involved as well, because you're not really, like, if you volunteer, you're in it, but if you don't, you don't really know anything about it. And then basically one night there'll be a essentially a trampoline, but basically like a wrestling ring set up in the middle of the playhouse, which will have jelly all over it. And then the counsellors come out, and there's normally kind of themes to it, so there'll be every year there'll always be like a UK team, so it'll be like a guy and a girl counsellor going out there, normally against the Aussie team. So there's always a bit of like a bit of rivalry between us two anyway. And then you do like the wrestling moves on each other. The jelly goes flying everywhere, all over the kids, and it's just such a good laugh. And it's just one of those weird things which, like, I don't think every camp will kind of have that one, but it's just like it's such a unique and just a weird one as well, but kind of similar to everything really. When you're describing it to people who haven't been to camp before, it's like, that sounds a little bit weird, but it's
hard to get it, but once you're there, it makes sense.
Yeah, and it's so like, I think it's just America in general. He's so passionate about that sort of stuff. You'll be screaming like during the entire event, pretty much. And that kind of leads me on to like the other. I think a lot of camps will probably have this, but I think we were talking earlier, I don't think your camp had rope burn.
But this sounds immense.
Yeah, so this was basically during Olympics. It would be similar to Sing. It would be a very kind of like big event that people would look forward to. And the gist of it is that you've got 2 poles, and then there'll be 3 ropes on the pole. The bottom one would be like a couple inches thick.
Okay.
The one just above higher, just a little bit higher, will be a bit thicker, and then the final one will be like a big fat kind of thick bit of rope. Yeah. And the goal is that the 2 teams have to build a fire. Okay. Aided by like a counsellor who's normally on kind of like outdoor adventure, who can help them build like a proper, like a really good fire. Yeah. And the gist of it is to burn through all 3 ropes. Okay. And once you've burnt through the final rope, you're done. You can rush the lake, run in, and that's your team done, and you won at that point, and you get the most points. It sounds silly because it can last for 6 hours, and you're standing at the side of a lake watching a fire for hours at a time. But the entire time you're going to be screaming your head off and chanting songs, because everyone is in the moment, super involved in it. They want your team to win, because apparently shouting at the fire is going to make it burn more, which makes sense. But honestly, the amount of time when one of the rope burns and it falls away, it's like England have just scored in the World Cup final. Wow, it's mental how like crazy people go for it. And those are the kind of events at camp where you'll get like, you'll after camp, you'll be back home and you'll get super nostalgic about stuff, and like something like random will trigger you off, and then you think, oh, I miss rope burn. That was such like a weird kind of thing about camp. And then if you're lucky enough to go back as a summer, you kind of buzzing for you, like, when's rope going to be this year?
And that's what it is from there.
Yeah.
I think one of the key words you just mentioned then was that type of nostalgic look back on things as well. And I think one event which will differ based on the traditions of each camp, but one which every camp will have, is something towards the end of camp, normally maybe the night before. And I remember that can be quite an emotional one as well, where kids have, you got to remember in America as well, kids live for summer camp. They love it. This is their place, not ours. It's theirs.
Yeah.
And they get to see friends which might be from different parts of the state, might even be out of state, and they all come together at this camp. So once they've spent an incredible few weeks together, when they leave and you've got that night at the end of camp, it's emotional. Like there's people
I've never
crying.
blubbed as a grown man as much as I have on like the final few days of camp. But yeah, I remember, so like our kind of final night at camp would normally, I think it's similar to your camp as well. Yeah. We would normally have, on the first night of camp, we would have, I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically where there'd be a kind of like a float on the lake, which would have either the year or like the camp's name or something like that.
That was like ours, yeah.
The seniors would go out on the boat, light the fire, come back, and then they'd come back and there'd be a huge bonfire set up on the side of the lake, and you basically go about, talk about what you're grateful for and what you're looking forward for this summer, and then put your bit of fire into the fire to sort of symbolize you being part of it and everything. And then the final night of camp was basically the exact same thing, but the opposite. So the seniors would go out. I think they either put the fire on again or they put the fire out. I can't quite remember. Yeah. And then it was just like a kind of nice bookend to the summer. It was like, we started this way, we're going to end it this way as well, just because it's tradition. But normally, we would have the final night at camp, and then the kids would leave in the morning, and then we'd go into the playhouse. We'd have breakfast in the morning with our kids, go into the playhouse, and then there'd basically just be a massive sing, where we'd sing like Singing in the Rain. I'm trying to think of the other ones, like the really kind of classic ones we used to sing, but it'd be the same every year. Yeah. And you'd be singing along, and for some reason there'd be water down your face because you're crying your eyes out, and you've just not even realised that you're crying. Yeah. All your kids are crying, which makes you cry even more. Yeah. And then once all that's done, kind of go out, get the kids' stuff and put them on the bus, and then it's weird. It goes like weirdly quiet at that point, and it's like, wow, the summer's kind of over.
It's a mad moment, isn't it? Especially considering for so long it's been just pure energy. And it's as weird as when you have staff training in the beginning and it's quiet and it's just the staff around and the kids arrive and then it's just chaos. When that then goes, there is a part which, even though you get to the end and you're tired and stuff like that, it is then very weird. Yeah. But I think it's a really cool thing. I think the events kind of throughout, you mentioned tradition a few times. That's kind of what it is, isn't it? Every camp has their own traditions. Every camp has their own events. But it is such an essential part of summer camp life. Can you imagine not having those events, what your summer camp experience would have been like?
I think I still would have loved it anyway, just because the experience of going and working in America for the summer, working with kids as well. And, I was lucky in the sense that I was a lifeguard, so I was on one of probably the best places on camp to work anyway. So I was very lucky in that sense. But I think the magic of the place is enforced by the events and the traditions of the camp. And that's the thing that keep it going and make sure that, it's fresh, because the events will be different every year. Like some of the stuff that we're mentioning now might not be even happening anymore. Yeah. So it could be completely different every year. But those are the kind of weird things that just keep it just different and unique and amazing and all that sort of good stuff.
I think, especially on the keeping it unique side, one thing I was going to kind of ask about is the fact that we've kind of talked about the big massive events. So the July the 4th type of stuff. And we've just talked about the sort of unique ones to your camp and ones around tradition. But the really cool ones as well are the ones which you don't expect. There might be little trips away, whether that's with campers or on your days off and stuff like that. Tell us about a few of the trips that you've kind of had and why that also kind of made an impact on what your summer camp experience was like.
Definitely. So one of the first trips I remember us having was, so my division of boys, which was the group I was always with, was called the Lower Plebes. Okay. We were I think they were 11 to 12-year-old boys. So from a UK point of view, they've just finished year 7. They're about to go into year 8. So they're still quite innocent, because as we know what year 8s are like. Yeah. I don't need to say anymore. But in America, they've just finished middle school. They haven't started high school yet. So they're still quite innocent. I really like that age group, because you can still have a decent conversation with them, but they weren't, immoral at that point. But like one of the trips we used to do with the Lower Plebes is we'd go on a camping trip. Yeah. We'd start off by going tubing down the Delaware River. So we'd all get into like little rubber rings and just go floating down the river. And there'd be a few kind of like little rapids and stuff, which would kind of be cool. But it was just a very kind of chill out, just having a good time with the boys, just floating down the river, and then we go camping. And it would be like, so I was, Cubs and Scouts when I was younger. When we used to go on like camps and stuff, we just end up playing football, just having a bit of laugh, hanging around the bonfire. And that's kind of what we did on the camping trip there as well. But I remember the first time that we did it, we were floating down this river, and I was just like, because I think as well, because of how late I'd applied for in the season, there were multiple times during that first one, I was like, how has this happened? How have I got here? Like, this is mental, but I'm doing it. And as I was thinking that my first summer, like during this camping trip, a bald eagle like flew across the river, and I was like, this is so stereotypical.
America.
Literally, yeah. Just feeling the freedom intensifying. But yeah, just those kind of like weird moments just make it for what it is. And then just hanging out and playing football with the boys as well was a great laugh. And then normally that night was when we would be told about this ghost story, which is the Grey Lady story, if anyone knows. We'd be told on that night, and it was all a bit spooky. We wouldn't tell it to the kids because it is terrifying. As a grown man, it's terrifying. But yeah, those are like just the kind of traditions of camp, which just make it what it is.
Yeah.
But then we had another trip later on in the summer. There'd be a trip week where every division would go on the trip. Lower camp, which with the younger kids, would normally just go somewhere for the day. Yeah. Upper camp would go somewhere for the night. And I was in upper camp, so I was quite lucky in that sense. We used to go to Hershey Park.
Mate, but it's good as well. Hershey's.
Yeah, it is class. But because the thing is as well.
We've talked a lot about food.
Good point, as well. That's what we rate in chocolate bars, because where would you rate Hershey compared to Dairy Milk? This is going off on such a tangent here, but
do you know, like Dairy Milk's strong.
Yeah.
Dairy Milk's strong. I mean, Hershey's, when you're over there, you kind of, again, you get into the American traditions in a way, don't you? It's a tradition to kind of have those types of things when you're there.
Yeah.
Everyone's mentioned about the trips to Walmart and everything like that. It's hard not to have a trip to Walmart and get a load of Hershey's, because that's just a tradition of camp as well, isn't it?
Even just like s'mores, like is it graham crackers? I forgot what they're called.
Yeah.
And then obviously marshmallow and a Hershey bar. Put it in a bit of foil, put it on the fire for a couple of minutes or whatever. It's the nicest thing going, and I wish we had those cracker things in the UK, because I'll be making them every day if I could.
Again, the time is about what in the evening here now. I'm starving. So talking about chocolate and food and everything, it's getting me going. I need to get back to camp here.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, the trip at Hershey Park was really cool, because we basically, the first day we would go there, we'd go on all the rides, and then we'd stop the night at Hershey Park, and then we'd go to like a science museum the next day and kind of watch a film, and it was a very kind of nice holiday. It was a trip. But the great thing about that trip is I'm not a massive fan of roller coasters. If I can avoid them, I will.
Yeah.
I was probably one of the only counsellors who didn't fancy going on roller coasters, and would have basically levels with the kids where if you wanted to go on a roller coaster which was mad and you had loop-de-loops, you'd be in level 4. Level 3 would be the same but no loop-de-loops, but the big roller coasters. Level 2 would be kind of the decent roller coaster. Level 1, no roller coaster, and we just kind of have a good time. Yeah. I was the only counsellor who was up for, I'll be level 1. I'll happily be level 1.
I'll stay with that.
And we had the best time ever during the trip with those kids, because we'd go around the zoo. Yeah. We'd have a laugh there. We'd maybe go on like the little kind of, there was like a Reese's, is it Reese's Pieces? Sorry to keep bringing it back to food as well.
The peanut ones.
Yeah. So there's like a Reese's Pieces like ride thing where you just shoot like little lasers as you're going around, and that was really cool as well. And I remember there was a little like wooden ride, which I'm not a massive fan of roller coasters, but I can kind of deal with that one. Yeah. And like everyone, it became again a little bit of a tradition with our group where we would go on that ride just because it's probably the easiest one to go on. Yeah. And I remember there was a kid who I won't mention his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but he was like just really not. He was scared about it, but he really wanted to do it because he was like, it's something. I want to go out my comfort zone and just push myself a little bit. And I was like, well, I'm terrified of this as well, so why don't we like sit next to each other, we'll scream as loud as we can as we go down like the 4-foot drop, and then we'll just have a bit of a laugh with it. And we did it, and we managed to get him on, and then as we came off, like we both turned to each other and was like, should we do that again, because that was a right laugh. And we did it like 3 times in a row, and it's again those just like little memories from those trips that just bring it back to what it is. And just the trips are what it is.
There's a few cool things in what you've just mentioned there as well. The fact that there's no one will ever be, you're never forced into some of these events to do things you're not comfortable with or anything like that, which is great. So there's something for everyone. Yeah. Another one from there as well is the fact that you do have an opportunity though to kind of go out of your comfort zone, and it's an opportunity which summer camp gives so often, doesn't it? The chance to kind of go out of your comfort zone, because you don't get that as much elsewhere, but you kind of have to seize that opportunity, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think just from my own kind of personal experience at camp, I feel like I might be doing a disservice to myself when I was younger, but I feel like I didn't really have a lot of life experience before I went to camp. Yeah. And it was definitely like just a bit of a growing experience, and just an opportunity to get out of my comfort zone really. But I remember during my first summer, we have a night during orientation, which again, I'm not going to give it away for the people who do end up going to start. I don't want to ruin it for them, but we'd have like a night where the boys and the girls would split up and we kind of do our own thing for the night. Anyone who's listening, they'll know what I'm on about. And I remember the first time we did it, I had that kind of thought where I was like, how have I managed to get here? Like 2 months ago, this wasn't even a prospect for me, like going and working in America. And now I'm standing on a lake with a bunch of boys that I've only met about 12 days ago. And yet I feel like I've known them my entire life. And I remember thinking to myself, like, this might be the only time that I'm here. This might be the only summer that I get the opportunity to do this. So I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to try things that I've never tried before. I'm going to push myself out of my comfort zone. Even if I hate doing it, I'm at least going to say that I did it and I tried to do it, even if I hate it. That first summer was genuinely, as probably cringe as it sounds, was genuinely life-changing for me. And it's the reason why I kept going back so many times, because that was the place that started off for me. And I think it's the same with the kids as well. They'll always be, they come back, and as a returner as well, it's weird because when you see the kids come back, they're completely different because they've had a whole year away from you. They've learned so much in school and stuff. And especially with my division, it was quite funny because when they come back, they've just had their first year at high school. And when I knew them, they were perfectly innocent. When they come back, they're feral. And they went from sounding like Mickey Mouse, and they're all sounding like James Earl Jones now as well.
All been there. All been there.
We've all been there. But yeah, like it's amazing when, you've got a kid who maybe like a few summers ago, he wasn't a great swimmer or didn't really fancy getting involved with American football or anything like that. Come back a few summers later and he's been playing, in the off season, and he's been playing loads and he's really good at it now. It's like, man, how you can see the growth of that and how involved they are and how much they want to kind of challenge themselves as well. And it's a great thing to witness as well, just being part of it.
That growth, isn't it? I think both for staff and campers alike, you kind of go through so much. Everyone we've had a sort of chat with on the podcast and stuff has said the exact same thing. And that's why I'm glad everyone does say it, because initially you think, oh, there's two people just having a chat about summer camp. They're saying these things because, they're going to have to say it. Like, I didn't work for this company prior to going to summer camp, so I'll always give a very honest opinion. And it is life-changing. Yeah, definitely. For everyone involved. I think that the growth that you do go through, whether it is getting out of your comfort zone, going from the level 1 to the level 2 rides for yourself and everything.
Not yet.
Like, I'm not jumping ahead too quickly. Maybe
interview me in another 5 years. Maybe we'll get there.
We'll get there. But yeah, I think the fact that those opportunities are there for everyone is like a really, really cool thing. And I think it's just about seizing that. We could probably even do another conversation about one other thing you've mentioned as well, but I'd love to touch on is the fact that you placed really late in the year, didn't you, on your first year? Yeah. What was that like? Was it that you applied late, was it initially? Or was it that just as the process goes, sometimes some might place early, some might place later? Yeah,
it was, to be fair, the application was actually pretty quick, but it was just because it'd only become a thing when I'd gone home for the Easter holidays, and it must have been March or maybe April time, I think, when I did start applying, which, as we know now, because we work in the industry, is quite late in the season at that point. But I was kind of lucky in the sense that I think I got my visa before I'd even been placed at a camp. I think they were just like, we'll fast track it, and then once you got your placement, we can just change the details of your visa, sort of thing. But then I got hired. I think I had a few camps get in touch with me at first, but they weren't. And this is important as well to mention, that they just weren't the right fit. Yeah. For some people, it just doesn't feel like the right fit, and it shouldn't be anything to be ashamed of.
Agreed.
Because we work with over 500 camps throughout the whole of the US. We are going to try and find you the best camp for you. So I think the first camp, I think it was in New Jersey, I want to say, and they'd actually, and this is going back to me putting everything that I'd ever done in my entire life on my application. Yeah. I did karate when I was like 11 for about a year, maybe, and I don't know why, but I'd put that on my application. They actually asked me to be the martial arts specialist, and I was like, I don't think that's going to be the right fit.
That's not quite for me.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit past that, to be honest. But then, Camp Starlight were, I'm pretty sure the third camp to get in touch with me, and I think it was just because the director really liked my application. She just wanted to reach out to me and find out what I was about, and it just went really, really well. Got the job. It must have been no more than 3 weeks, I think, before I was supposed to fly out. And I was still finishing up at uni. I was still attempting to do my dissertation at that point.
Had a lot on.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't really get a chance to, I think I'd been added to a Facebook group, but I didn't get a chance to really pay much attention to or like post anything on there. So I didn't know anyone before I went. So I didn't really, I think it was kind of a good thing as well, because I didn't have a lot of time to kind of overthink it either. So I just kind of dove into it head first, really. Exactly. And then turned up in New York, met the rest of the Waterfront staff. I was nervous. I'm not going to lie. I was
Yeah.
I felt like a little bit out of my comfort zone, a bit out of my depth.
Yeah.
And it did take, I'd say, about a week or so to kind of get over that and then just get involved with it. But I think that's fairly natural.
Yeah.
It resulted in me getting my nickname at camp, which was Crystal. Crystal, yeah. So it's quite a funny story, to be fair. So we met up in the hotel room in New York, and we did that classic thing where you're all sitting around the table and you kind of go through what your name is, where you're from, what you're doing at camp, blah, 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 that sort of stuff. And I was super nervous because I didn't know any of these people. And there was quite a few returners that year, which, again, just makes it a little bit more nerve-wracking as well. Because like all these people kind of already know each other. Exactly, yeah. So I was even more nervous with that, really. But the person before me, I don't know why, but they'd said their full name and then talked a little about themselves. It got to me, and I don't know why. Instead of just saying, "Hey, I'm Chris. I'm from the Midlands. So I'm going to be a swimming coach," I decided I was going to say my full name. So I said, "Hey, my name's Chris Sewell," but instead I said it really quickly. So I went, "Hey, it's Crystal," and somebody went, Did you just say Crystal then? And I was like, oh no. And that stuck with me for 4 summers after that.
It stays though, stuff like that, doesn't it?
Even the kids started like calling me that as well, which is a little bit embarrassing, but it is what it is.
It's a nice little thing as well, isn't it? It's one of those where the main reason I wanted to kind of ask about that as well is you look the fact that you've been back to your camp for 4 years and you've done all these incredible events and had all of these incredible trips and stuff. And it was getting relatively tight on the application sort of stage. So kind of your advice for people that want to do all these events and stuff and who haven't quite placed when it's getting towards the end, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, just sort of like hold fire with it because it's still, and don't worry about if you haven't found a placement yet, because we put a guarantee. If you get past your interview, we're going to find you a spot. And as I say, we do work with a ridiculous amount of camps throughout the whole of the US. And if it doesn't feel like the right fit, it's because it probably isn't the right fit. And we want you to have an amazing summer at camp. We don't want you to go for the sake of going just so you have a job. You've got to have that proactiveness of when you're interviewing with a camp, maybe interview them a little bit as well to kind of find out what your job role is going to be and how your summer's going to look, and just try and get a general a vibe about that camp, essentially, and a bit more information about them, and then come to an informed conclusion whether it is the right fit for you or not. Hopefully, we'd say 9 times out of 10, it tends to be first time around we get it right, but there will be a few people who it just doesn't feel like the right fit. But don't worry, don't stress. We'll find you another one. And as I say, we work with a load of camps, so we'll definitely try and find you a placement, and we'll definitely find you one that you feel like is the right fit for you as well.
Amazing. Well, I was going to say that's probably a good place to sort of round it up on. One thing I always kind of do right at the end, I'll always kind of say to give people sort of 5 roundup points from like the chat we've just had and everything. But I think considering a lot of what we spoke about was events and traditions and stuff like that.
Yep.
From your experience or in your opinion, could you give us the 5 top summer camp events? Doesn't have to be in any order, can just be thrown out there. But for you, even if it was those small little memorable ones, what's the top 5?
I think even though it's not in particular order, the first one that screams out at me is Olympics, just it's because it's the biggest event at camp, really. And I think it's universal for all camps. I think most of them do have an Olympics of some sort. So definitely Olympics would be, it's not in order, but it would be definitely number 1. I think, as we kind of touched on earlier, July 4th is, it's such a kind of cultural experience to go to America and experience that, especially your first time if you've never been to America before, and especially if you've never been to America during July 4th. It's mental. So that's I'd definitely put that as number 2. I think just having those kind of traditional ones, like you say, with the kind of colour war that your camp has.
I'd have to veto and throw that in there because
definitely.
that was a crazy one. So I'd definitely have that in there.
Did you throw paint as well, or was paint being thrown at you?
I was absolutely frisbeeing it everywhere. I was just well getting involved. It was. Do you know what though? Again, because it's such a different concept to what you have at home, but I think the kids feed off energy as well. With summer camp, what you kind of put into it, you get out. So I always just try to go into them with full energy, whether that's throwing paint everywhere or pretending I'm an Olympian. It's got to be done.
Amazing stuff. I think we've touched on a lot of like kind of tradition as well. So like the very traditional parts of camp, which maybe not the most like exhilarating or exciting, but the ones that make it memorable. I think like the kind of, the end of camp events that we talked about where it was like, the final sing or the kind of putting out the fire on the lake or things like that. I think, or rope burn as well, just to shout that out again. It's just those kind of traditional ones really make each camp unique and make it for what it is. So I'd definitely whack that in there.
That's a good one. Number 4. What would number 5 be?
I'm trying to think of, maybe one that we haven't mentioned yet. I think that the trips, like with my camp, with the Hershey Park one, the camping one, Those were definitely memorable for me. I think just for the boldness of it, probably the wrestling one, just because it's so random and it's so like kind of quirky and cool, and it involves everybody and everybody has a laugh with it. It's not something that's specific to one division where the juniors love it, but the seniors think that's, you know, a bit too lame for them or anything. Everybody loves it. Everyone loves it. I think I have to put in an honorary Starlight Wrestling Federation in there. I love it. That's a cool shout. And I think the best thing about that is the sort of first 4 there are ones which everyone's going to enjoy and be able to kind of go through. And then number 5, probably very symbolically, is the fact that it's something which means a lot to you. And I think everyone's going to probably have that moment and those experiences in camp which are very meaningful to them as well. Definitely, man. So I don't think there's any better way to round it up than that, mate. So Chris, thanks very much for sort of talking us through summer camp. I'm sure everyone that's going to listen will probably chat to you at some point with camp leaders and everything. But appreciate you sharing your event, and hope to catch you thanks soon. For having me on, man. It's my first podcast experience, so I'll be on Joe Rogan next week. There you go, not the last. He's on it. He's on it. But yeah, nice one, mate. Much appreciated. Cheers, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, catch you soon. Thanks for watching the Camp Leaders podcast. If you enjoyed it, pop us a like and be sure to follow and subscribe for more of the same.